Hi, I wanted to record a few minutes before I have to go to work soon, and I had thought of two topics I wanted to do videos of, and I knew this would be rolling around in my head while I'm at work for those 5 hours. So I wanted to talk about, I guess in my next video, I wanted to talk about Star Wars and Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of the slave mentality and the slave mentality and the master mentality, which is often something that's been misunderstood and misconstrued. In fact, I vaguely remembered much of it myself, but I was thinking about Star Wars and Darth Vader as an allegory to it. But that's for another video. Sorry. Um, I wanted to talk about the importance of kinship, that we all need some, or we long for some connection to people, whether they're family members or people that we find commonality with. And I want to talk about my own personal feelings about it, my own experiences. I grew up with just my mom primarily. Primarily. I mean, my dad visited a few times. I didn't have any contact with my cousins or any relatives outside just my mom. My mom, my mom would take me on these walks, starting when I was like 10 or something like, I can't remember exactly when, but just over a stretch of like maybe 2 decades, 2.5 decades or something. She would talk about stories and aspects of my uncle and my and their children, his children, and similarities. And I'm sorry, my mom usually would say something like my artistry, that so point out some family member of hers that was also artistic, or who had also struggled with finding work, because it bothered me terribly when I graduated college and it was very difficult for me to find work. This ties in with what I also want to talk about in terms of finding kinship. I'll get to that soon. It bothered me a lot because I had some role models, like mental role models. I had never met them. Well, for one, Madonna. I'll just put it out there, Madonna. But in general, like, she's an example of, in some sense, of these famous people, these famous artists and entertainers. And I felt a kinship with entertainers in general and those famous entertainers. And it bothered me very much. I felt like there was a concept, I was a pretender. It felt like I had been a pretender, that in the sense that I had to put on a face and an act of somebody who enjoyed office work, because that's the only that's the only kind of work that entailed skills that I had and I felt comfortable doing. I wanted to go out after college. I planned to move to Los Angeles, and way back. I mean, in elementary school, maybe middle school, onward through high school, I wanted to go to Los Angeles. I planned to go to Los Angeles, and Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek. I had been a Star Trek fan going way back to fifth grade, 1980, yeah, fifth grade, and I felt a kinship with them, with Gene Roddenberry, who created that show, and script writers and writers in the industry of writing for television, creating television shows, and creating. David Kelly comes to mind, although I didn't really follow his stuff, but he's been famous for creating various television shows, um, and also movies, film writer, screenwriter. I felt a kinship towards them, um, and it bothered me very much. I felt trapped. I very much felt, I still feel trapped in many ways. But it's now a sense of the past, like I'm stuck and I don't know. I'll keep working at it, but I don't know if I'll ever undo what years have brought on. Um, uh, I want to go back to my childhood now, and I want to mention the first real friend that I can remember. Maybe there was a friend in the past I forgot about, but the first real close bond I felt with a friend was in elementary school. Now I went to two elementary schools because I moved at the beginning of fourth grade. It wasn't that far a move, but for a kid, it felt like a lot. Uh, I remember we were okay. I don't have to mention his name, but I think I can get away with mentioning experiences and things with him. I remember being on the school bus, and this may have been the first time that I met him. There were classmates. There were certainly classmates around, and Transformers. He was sitting with somebody. The three of us were sitting in the same school bus seat, and something about Optimus Prime. He had Optimus Prime. I think he had Optimus Prime in a box, in the box that the Transformers toy came in, and my mom couldn't afford to get a lot of toys. A lot of them we got from garage sales and so forth. That's for another time, another video. And I remember him just casually making good conversation. I don't know if he talked very much. I do remember we kids would play in the schoolyard, like the boys would play Transformers, and we would take on a role. Each kid would take on a role of a Transformer for a long, like many recess sessions. And I remember somebody told me, you'd be good for Mirage. And I hadn't seen the TV show, so I didn't know. And there's a lot about the Transformers my interest in, and I'll cut that out. But I remember them being friendly, and I don't remember the kids making fun of me. That happened soon after I moved schools and started the other elementary school. I remember getting used to this one friend. I'll call him John, and well, I shouldn't say John. I'll call him Steve. Sometimes Steve invited me over to his house, and I lived in an apartment building complex, and it was simply a matter of going down the street. And I remember that first day, I walked over and we sat and played in the yard, and it was more than just playing Bang Bang or playing with. We were playing with Star Wars action figures, but it was more, especially my relationship with this person, Steve. It was more than just playing with action figures and hey buddy and so forth, and I go home. There was a mental bonding. What struck me as different about him was that he would ask questions like I remember that that visit there. We were out in the yard, and he asked. He suggested, let's figure out what happened after Return of the Jedi, which is the third and final movie in the original trilogy of Star Wars. And it's like he was encouraging the both of us to speculate and trying to figure out a storyline to come after it. And I remember uh, never, there was no sense that he looked down on me because I didn't have as much money or I couldn't afford as many toys. It wasn't even, we shared toys. It was more like we shared an interest in Transformers and then Mask 2 for a bit and a little bit Masters of the Universe. Um, but it was always him relating to me as a person, relating to me like on equal terms. We were always on equal terms when we were talking, and not just equal terms, but um, like I want to say philosophy because that's the closest word I can think of. Uh, we would he would ask like, "What do you think?" Like Starscream is a character from Transformers or something, hypothetically. Like he would point out something in the paragraph description about Starscream's abilities, and he would ask me, "What do I think this means?" Or do you think that like in this episode when this happens, do you think that it's interpreted this way or should be interpreted this way, or what do you think he meant by that or something? And and so yeah, I missed him when I had to move to a new school. And um, going back to primarily kinship, although this all relates to kinship, um, I didn't know that I was Jewish until um, I think in maybe summer uh, of the summer before seventh grade began, maybe somewhere in sixth grade. Um, but I felt in school, I I felt in school that uh, that there was a lack of communication. There's a lack of an ability to relate to these other kids. There was a lack, specifically, there was a lack of things I could relate to them about. So I just kept quiet and to myself. And I also didn't want to be picked on. And what, something comes to mind. I, I figured if I interacted with them, then they would find something to make fun of me about. And they didn't really want to relate to me. And going back to role models and kinship, I think we all need companions and and kin, not necessarily family members, although that's strong, very important, but people who understand each other, like a community that has some common values, and not just values like we value freedom or we value teaching or something, but passions. I guess common passions that can unite a group of people together. And with Steve, we definitely had certain passions that we shared and that united both of us. And there was another friend, a close friend, when I moved into the new elementary school and onwards. He was my best friend. And later on, we both liked Transformers. And later on, there was a much old, like somewhere through high school, I happened to meet because I liked UFOs, and I covered this in that earlier UFOs for Halloween video. He's, I guess he was in his 50s somewhere, and I was in high school, and he drove me over to Cornell to watch an author who had written a couple of books on UFOs speak. And that, just going to that lecture, that was sometime when I was out of high school. I mean, for that weekend, that Friday and that Saturday evening, I was out of high school, and I was, it wasn't a school day. And when I came in, I remember somebody else that I had been friends with, like I'd reached out to because I'd read something about him starting and maintaining a UFO library collection at OCC, and I didn't know that was him at the time. But there's this feeling of camaraderie when I was there, and I noticed several people older than I am. Of course, these are college people. Now I'm older than they are, ironically, but and they weren't necessarily interested. I don't know how they were interested in the topic of UFOs. At least they were curious to go and attend. But there were also some adults there, and again, that guy that I had been in contact, that I reached out to, and that's some camaraderie. I mean, that's some passion that united us into a sort of a community. It's going on almost 17 minutes. I guess I don't really have that much more. I want to make it short, but primarily, I guess I'm encouraging you to seek out those people that do share your interests, because it's very important. And my relatives, I've reached out to a little bit more, and thank goodness that I feel gifted, or I feel happier and more comfortable because I've been able to reach out to more relatives than just my mom. So I'll leave you with that, and I'll be talking about that Star Wars allegory with Darth Vader coming soon. So long for now.